Hey everyone, Mango 7 here. How we doing today? Welcome to another episode of Epic 7. Today we're gonna do another top 5-ish video, and we're gonna talk about specialty changes and who I think should really get a specialty change and what role I would like them to try to fill, and why it would be a good idea for free-to-play people to get these one spec changed. So the first one I'm going to take a look at is actually fire. We have one fire already, right? Yeah, one fire already, which is Hazel. So that means we could definitely use another fire one. I realize I'm in all the wrong sections here. I want to be in all, not there. And there's so many good options here. There's Carrot, there's Nemunas, there is Carmen Rose, there's Judith, there's whatever this guy does, there's Tierra. So many we could pick, but I'm going to pick Azalea. I've been using Azalea on one of my tutorial accounts, and one thing you may or may not know, I specifically didn't know until I used her. This spell is AoE. So this says sweeps the enemy with a spear with a 65% chance to decrease speed for 2 turns. So I originally thought this was single target, and that was kind of lackluster, but it's definitely AoE. And one of the biggest complaints or concerns I have with newer players is if they don't have somebody like Cez, who else? Vildred, Bellona, Clarissa, those AoE style farmers, then there really is nobody to use. There's no 3-star AoE farmers really. There's not really any 4-stars even outside of Clarissa. So this would just fill a really good gap we have for farming. Just giving us a really strong, easy to get fire unit that does farm decently well. He's also a warrior, so that plays with a lot of decent farming equipments as well. But this is huge, right? Like, this actually does a really good amount of damage at low level. I was really surprised personally because when I was playing her, she attacked and killed the whole wave, and I was like, what? She doesn't have an AoE? But yeah, it turns out she does with Sweep. We also have a second skill with Provoke and Unhealable, kind of an interesting skill set, to be honest. I like the idea behind it, but provoking somebody with her is not always the best idea because she's kind of paper. And the final one is proportionate to her max health she recovers HP by. Not a bad skill set, to be honest. If we take a look at her 6 stars, she's got 100-ish speed, pretty low defense, pretty low HP, and pretty middling attack. So, as for what I would do to Azalea, I would just try to make her into more of an AoE farmer and user of that, like a bus driver of some sort, just to give people something to farm with. That said, it's really hard to decide what to do. There's so many varying factors. I would try to give her some form of lifesteal. I would want this to stay as AoE. One of the things I was thinking of, if you really wanted to focus her into that really great farmer, have some sort of skill reset if you kill an enemy with this or something like that, because it wouldn't be too powerful that way, and it would make her into one of the best farmers. Another thing to do would be, I don't even know, like make it so this one gives her a self-defense buff or something like that. Because right now she's having a little bit of problems with her second skill because she taunts, and you kind of want to make her DPS-y. Yes, you get extra HP through this skill, but you're not going to do any damage if you don't build her attack-based. So those are the ideas I have for Azalea, just to make her a little more bulky, a little more bruisery, a little more damagey, a little more everything. And hopefully she would find a place in people's teams, both for AoE for something like Execution or Carcanus. If that's the stealth one, that's the one I mean. Also for things like farming, especially for fire. Like I said, we have all the winds and all the waters, but no fire farmers. So I think this would be perfect having Azalea here. Next up, let's pick a water. And water is one I struggled with. I honestly, as I'm speaking now, I don't know who I'm about to click yet. I have a couple options in my head that I'm trying to decide if they work or if they deserve a spec change. The first one I'm thinking of is Aether. I feel like we really need another healer, but I also don't think it needs to be water. So that's kind of my concern with Aether, and I also feel like he's going to get a spec change with story. So I think that's the underlying factor with Aether, not so much what we get next. So I'm going to pass on Aether. And then that leaves 2 I'm kind of considering. One is Jenna, who we just received, and honestly, Jenna has a lot of issues. Jenna is really, really bad. And there's also Rima. A lot of people don't even know what Rima does, and granted, I honestly don't know what her first and second do. I know her first is a cooldown or a skill cooldown decrease, and I think that's really solid. So this is who I would probably choose to make a specialty change, just because she's got a really unique kit. This also decreases cooldown on a critical hit. This one has a chance to sleep, which is interesting. And this one is just skill cooldown by 3 turns. So one of the ways to make her really solid is to give this a combat readiness boost, or maybe give it a speed boost, the speed buff, of course. Just something to make the team go more. I'm not really sure what else to do. Possibly give her an extra turn as well, just to kind of make it so she doesn't just waste her entire turn. That way she uses this, gets an extra turn, and then can sleep something, or can get a skill down decrease with her quick shot. Because it makes sense, right? You've got a him and then you've got a quick shot right after. It's kind of like a 1-2 punch. Rima is one of those ones who I've never actually seen use, and with good reason, because she is just pretty bad in its current state. But this is such a powerful ability, especially with 3 turns. So there's so many different ways. As I think about this, I realize it's not AoE, and that makes it a lot worse. So maybe we need to rethink the third, because we could definitely make this good, right? Like, we could give her a full ATB, attack bar gauge, or whatever you want to call it, of the person she targets to make them go again. This would instantly make this amazing. But I still don't think she's good enough at that point. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what can possibly make Rima better than the alternatives. You could give her, like, attack buff too to the person you target. But that's still, like, is that good enough? I mean, it's got to be good enough, but it just feels so bad still. You could also make this AoE is another option, and that way she's basically prom cruise on steroids, or whatever you want to call it, because she can AoE do this on a 5-turn cooldown. So I think after I talk about this, and this is one thing about this video, by the way, this is not planned. I'm just going in straight from the head, so we're gonna go back and forth, but that's kind of how I like to do these things, and it's cool to talk about and theorize these things. So I think ultimately what I would like the best from Rima is to have her on a AoE skill reset. So have it be a targeted skill reset, hit one of your people, have that person's gauge go to 100%, and lower the cooldown of everybody on the team by 3 turns, not just the main person. It would obviously not lower hers either, just the main person. This way, it would really help people out in PvE, specifically Abyss and Raids, and it would just be a really good combo unit, and that would be great to have around there. You could also have something added to this, like if this crits, which it's going to because it decreases the caster's skill cooldown, ups Rima's combat readiness by 50% or something like that. Have that added on. And you could also add gain another turn or something like that on Lullaby. I realize I'm starting to make her super overpowered, but maybe that's what she needs. Another thing too, you could make quick shot not wake them up. So if they're slept, you could make it so quick shot does not wake up slept targets is another option. Overall, I'm just brainstorming with Rima, but I love the idea behind their skill set, and I just really want to use Rima. I'm a huge fan of minstrels, bards, all that sort of thing. So I really want to have her on my team. She's also a ranger, and she can hold a lot of really solid artifacts. So I don't know. I just want her to be good. So give her some love. Super creative. Next up is Earth, and Earth is one of those ones I keep going back and forth on. Obviously, Helga is rumored to be a spec change soon, but that's not who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Jekt. We really need more accessible healers. I don't think Jekt is the one we need, the hero we deserve, but I think he's fantastic. He's already one of the best healers, if not the best healer for Banshee 11, and I think he should get a little more love. The other cool part is he also has a speed imprint, which makes him nutso as it is. So I'm trying to figure out what the best thing to do here is with this skill set. So the big problem with Jecht is can't really hold Rod of Amaryllis. I mean, I guess he can hold Celestine or something like that to get a bit of extra healing in. He also has a continuous healing and speed buff, which are two very important buffs, but at the same time, not enough to really solo heal. So he usually has to go along with another healer. So I'm trying to consider what the best way to build him is. And I was thinking you could give him a little bit more of a damage multiplier than other people, than other healers, and make it so the damage you deal with Gale and the damage you deal with Staff heals your party. That's the only thing I could think of to give him like a raw healing output. So he's not as big of a healer as a main healer, but he does enough damage to kind of work as a sub DPS. That way he still has this Dispel in his second skill, and you could add the passive here or something like that. Damage dealt by skills recovers HP or something like that, and give him some more damage. So that way he's offensive healer, so he's really good for speed runs, really good for Banshee, really good for any sort of clearing you're trying to do that you want to be done quick. You don't really want to bring a healer, but you need healing, kind of like a haste, I would say. But I don't want him to do like a vampire debuff like haste does, because that just doesn't make sense. Yeah, so that's my thoughts for him. You could also go another route and just give another buff or debuff here. So for example, you could give slow down or decrease speed to enemies with this. But then he just kind of does what a lot of other people do, and I want to make him a little more useful. Yeah, I love Jecht. He was one of my first ever healers. I used him alongside Destina at the start of the game. So I would love it if he could get some sort of offensive usefulness just to kind of solidify his place. But unfortunately, that does not fix the problem we have right now, which is just having a really good healer that isn't Angelica. So because of that, we're going to go back to the Soulweavers here and take a look at Montmoron. She's tough, to be honest. Like, she's got a pretty decent skill set. She has immunity, but I'm not sure how to make her better. I was thinking about this one, and this is when I used her just anecdotally. Like, what I had a problem with is you didn't always need to debuff, and it only heals people who are debuffed, so that's a problem in itself, but at the same time it's really good, so it's tough to really fix that second skill. She also has a third one here, which I really like, and maybe if this was like her soul burn was changed. Like, I love the idea of her soul burn being AoE like this, but if this was just an all-around, just not soul burn, automatically do everything but with the soul burn effect, she becomes amazing, I think. And I think it's awesome. So maybe that's something they can do. Make it so her soul burn changes and instead she gets an AoE healing. That makes her into kind of a mini Angelica, but at the same time that's kind of boring. And I don't know if they've ever changed soul burns like that. So maybe we need to think of something else. This is tough. Like, how do you fix this? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Because obviously immunity for one unit is not good enough. Like, she's really, really good, and she's actually a really solid healer, but you need to play her on manual. So what can we do to make her a better auto healer? Because I'm honestly not sure. Like, I love the soul burn, but it's hard to take away the soul burn. 3-turn cooldown 2 would be too nutso with this as well, so you'd have to like move it up to 4 turns. This is tough. Montmorency, you are one tough cookie. Her debuff with the sleep is also not the greatest. So looking at Montmorency, I'm having a tough time. I really think she deserves some love, and I'm kind of wondering if the option is to just make her better, to make her usable instead of Angelica, or just to like wait for some more 3 or 4 stars to come out. So that's a problem with our current setup of 3 to 4 star units, is they don't have the right enough base skill set. I mean, the only person that really does is Aether and Hazel, but Hazel was changed to not really help in the way we want them to help. So maybe like the alternative here is really just to fix Aether. And honestly, if you've ever used Aether, one of his biggest problems is he just doesn't heal enough. Like, he's got really low cooldowns, but guard just barely does anything, and this is okay, but it's just not enough. And also when you have no debuff removal, when you have no immunity, when you have no buffs, and your heals themselves don't even heal that much, that's when you come into trouble. So I think a really good way to fix Aether is just to give him immunity, but I don't know if I want to do that. Anyways, we have one more that we want to talk about here. And I am going to talk about, I haven't even decided who it's going to be yet. There's been so many I've been considering that I really want spec changes. I don't want to look at Darker Light, by the way, just because I feel like we have too many of those already. And they're not as accessible. I want these accessible newer players. Okay, so the final one we're going to look at is going to be Helga. I love Helga. She will gore you. She's also got the same VA as Lidica, by the way. Helga and VA are the same people. Or Helga and Lidica are the same people. I use Helga on my ult just for funsies, and there's a couple things wrong with her. One is just like attack buff. Doing nothing but attack buff is just so bad. So many people do so much more than just attack buff. So we have to think about a way to buff the Cry of Victory. He also extends buffs granted to the caster by 1 turn. That's just not very good. Unless you can mix in some sort of immunity or something like that on a 2-turn cooldown. Like if you can get immunity on her and just start going nuts with that, that would be amazing. There's also Defense Break, which is great as well, but it's only a 50% chance. So whatever we do with their spec change, we would have to up this to like 75% chance. So I'm trying to figure out how to make Helga good, because she's obviously got a lot of the same problems the other people do. So first off, we need to think about Cry of Victory. Maybe one thing she can do is give her immunity's too good, right? Or invincibility or something like that. That's too good. So I don't think she could do that. The only thing that really makes sense, especially for a Cry of Victory, is like combat readiness buff, which would make her really solid, but that seems so boring. We don't want boring, right? So I know we're not really coming up with answers in this video, but that's one of the cool things, is kind of just like letting your thoughts flow and talking about stuff, because it also extends buff duration. So we have to imagine, unless they change the soul burn, they would have to add some sort of secondary buff to this. We might want to add like a crit rate buff to her. That would be something that's really solid, because it's a 5 freaking turn cooldown for increased attack for 2 turns. Like, that's so atrocious. So I think making her into a powerhouse with this skill would just be amazing. And then I think this one here should turn to AoE on your team. So a critical hit will extend any buffs granted to the entire team by 1 turn. I would also put it to like a 3-turn cooldown or something like that instead, just to kind of make it balanced. I know they don't really do that, but while we're theorizing here, I just think that's a really cool idea, because the idea behind Helga is kind of weird, right? Because she gores you and she's super rude, and it doesn't feel like she plays well as a team, but at the same time, she buffs your allies and everything like that. So her skill set is just kind of weird to me. But I think instead of being like the selfish, I will gore you person, she'll turn into like a team cheerleader sort of thing, which would make sense if we changed attack chain to like the whole team instead of just her. And if we gave her some more extra damage here, this would turn Helga into a completely maniacal damage dealing buffer for your team. And we could also leave the first skill just as it is, but of course give it an extra chance. So yeah, those are my ideas and thoughts. I just wanted to talk about some of the 3-star units and maybe some of the reasons we might want to change them or kind of fix what's going on with them. She'd also take off her helmet too. There's no way she has her helmet on the spec change. I want to see those flowing locks. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the description below. Let me know what you would like to see for your specialty changes, why you would like them changed, and where you would use them, because I think it's fun to talk about. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everybody.